Hello, this is Pat. In this video, I'll demonstrate using some sample data that comes from a package inside of R. So the steps we're going to do to get this data to into the actual work environment, we're going to load the dataset package. In this case, the package itself has already been installed, but now we're going to activate it basically, or attach to it. With that attach, and to make it active where I can consume the data sets that are inside, I'm going to use the function called require. Again, require can also interchangeably use with library. Library may be the one you're most familiar with from your first forays into R. Then we're going to apply a function to the data frame. And now, because of the way that R and RStudio is managing data coming in from a package, we actually have to apply a function to bring it to a state where we can actually use the data inside. Once we have the data actually inside of our workspace, we're then going to look at a read-only data frame, or a view. So the function for it is view, but we'll just use the GUI features. We'll do some double clicking. We'll then look at, now there's an edit inside of R, which I believe it had already been there, but it did not work in RStudio. With the later versions of RStudio, you're now able to edit a table in a GUI. So if you have a smaller set, this makes it very easy to keep kind of the big picture in mind as you're editing some values. Then you can take those and you can assign it to a whole new data frame. In this case, I call it a table because it looks like a table structure, something you're probably used to from Excel, tabular format. So that will be the steps we're going to follow in the video. So let's get going. To begin, we're going to enable this datasets package within the system library. So I've already installed it. We could just check the checkbox. We chose to use it in the GUI, and you'll see the function called is library datasets, and then they had an explicit path to the location. If you do this in Windows, you'll just see it. You have a little bit different user path. In my case, it's just in my user directory. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to detach. You can see it's the detach call here, so you can attach or detach to a data set. And what I'm going to use up here is another alternative. You can see library is one I could have used. I'm going to just comment that one out in my script. And I can also use the term require. So just to show you the other, I'm going to run it, and you'll see it does the same thing and it enables the data set, so you'll get the same end result. Now what I can do, now that I've loaded the dataset package itself, I can attach to it. And the way to do it, the easiest way, is to just do a data. Just look at the data inside. And you can see here by doing the data function, I can see each of the data sets that are there with a brief explanation. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load one of those data sets. And one of the ones that were in the list is called Anscombe. It's a popular one that's used, good sample data. And I'm going to look at a question of it. What is Anscombe? I could have also called it this way. I'll also comment that out, where I could use help and the name of the data set, or just the question mark for help and Anscombe. You'll notice over here, and we'll probably use this more as we go along in class, but what I look for here is I just want to make sure that I'm getting the right data set when I have a look at it and apply a function to it. So this data frame, it comes in as a data frame. It has 11 observations on 8 variables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it in. So earlier when we called data with no argument, you see all the data sets within the package. I'm going to call data with Anscombe. And now I can see that it's been brought into my global environment, but it's actually just under a status called promise. And what that means, and notice it says unevaluated promise, that means that I haven't called any type of function against it. When I do, it'll bring in all of those observations and variables into my workspace. So notice here, I'm going to use a function called class. And before, I know I frequently just use head, but that's because it's a very simple function. It's just going to return 6 records from the data set. In my case, I'm going to use the one called class because, as it said in the documentation, it's supposed to be a data frame as it comes in. So I'm going to do the class of that particular data set, and notice it returns that it is a data frame. So I realize it looks like everything's gone okay with my import. And when I applied it, notice up here it also shows that there's 11 observations of 8 variables, just like it says in the documentation. So from here I can feel like I can go ahead and continue on. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look a bit at the data set and what you can do with it. So in this data frame format, if I double click on the data itself here, I'll get a GUI interface. Now this GUI doesn't allow me to edit any of the values, so it's a read only, but I can do a few things. I can filter, and here I can show in a new window, so I can put it into its own window, but I can't make any changes to the data itself. Now with the later version of RStudio, we are able to do something called editing. So we can edit in a GUI type environment any data frame. So in my case, I'm going to, and before I pass it to another data variable, I'm going to just say edit Anscombe, and you'll see this is what our data editor looks like. So in here I can make a change to it. Now I don't want to make a change to the original set, which is Anscombe itself, so I'm just going to create a new one called temp data frame, so temp.df. When I call this line, I'm going to see my R data editor, and we'll make, I'm not sure what the numbers even mean right now, but I'm just going to make some changes. So we'll just put 10 on here. We'll just do 4 cells of 10 just to see the difference. Oops. So what I did is I just edited those 4, and I'm going to hit quit. Now that I've done so, let's have a look and see what tempdf is, because I've assigned it to tempdf. And notice there's my change, 10, 10, 10, 10, the bottom left-hand quadrant. Notice here, if I want to open it up in that GUI, I can, and I can see it in this non-editable read-only table structure. And there's the changes that were made. And if I go back to the original Anscombe, which is my original data set, you can see that hasn't been changed at all. Also, if you want to ever call one of these windows, you can see here as you use or double click anything here or do anything in the automated GUI, you'll actually see the commands here that then you can use later if you choose to. So like in this particular case, if I wanted to see that view as well, so I'll just delete that, and I want to see, I'm just going to do a view. I guess I'll just type it in. My copy and paste didn't work. I'm going to do a view. Whoops. And I'm going to do my df. There you can see it. When I run it, notice it opens that window. So if you want to include something like that in your script, you can as well. That way the end user or the next person using your script can view the data whenever you choose to. Here, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my environment, my global environment. And there I'm just removing everything in that list structure. And down here, Control L, and that'll clean my console for the next thing we work on.